Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Hopefully everyone is on the call and we are ready to get started. Right now I'm Janet Baker, and on behalf of Paper Tiger and Ann McGurty, we want to thank you for attending the webinar. Presenting is Fred Holgado, also with Paper Tiger, and Ann McGurty, who is CEO of Strategize and Organize. She is a professional speaker, productivity expert, and author. On today's webinar, we plan to cover how to get started with Paper Tiger Online, including creating a new database, adding a new location, printing tabs for your locations, then filing and finding items in the database. We will also cover the multi-user concept and how to assign permissions to additional users. We will stop periodically and open the phones for questions. There is also a chat section on your screen in which you can submit questions. I will be helping Fred and Ann watch out for those questions, and we will try our best to answer all of the questions during the call. Please note that there is a drop-down box for who you send your questions to, either to all attendees or to the presenters, whichever you prefer is good. Anything not answered on today's call, please email us and we will answer you back directly, and also cover the issue on our next webinar, which is scheduled for next Wednesday, February the 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Ann McGurty will be conducting that webinar. For our contact information, just click on the Contact Us button at the bottom of our website. We want to make our webinars as fun and flexible as possible, so feel free to let us know what you want to hear in this webinar or future webinars. All attendees for today's webinar will be entered into Paper Tiger's Apple iPad contest ending March 31st, and Ann has graciously offered 30 free minutes over the phone for anyone interested in more professional one-on-one assistance. Now, to get on with the best part, I'll turn the call over to Fred.
Hey guys, I hope everybody's doing okay. Like Janet said, we're going to be covering a brief getting started guide to Paper Tiger Online. Like you said, we're going to be stopping for questions periodically, but at any point in time, if you feel like you have a question or you didn't understand something, feel free to stop me, and we'll go over it again and make sure that that you guys can get some really good content out of this. Okay, so let's get started. What I've got here is I've got the Paper Tiger Online screen pulled up just to make sure. Can everybody see this okay? If you can, just go ahead and raise your hand on the webinar. Everybody can hear? Perfect. Looks like we are good to go then. Anyways, so like I was saying, this is the dashboard of Paper Tiger Online. I'm not going to go over creating an account. Hopefully you guys can have managed to get that far. Hopefully we've made the process easy enough for you. But what I want to show you is first, to get started, we're going to create a database. And the first thing I want to do before we get started on that is just ask Ann just a little bit more about databases and how they should be set up. I know we get a lot of questions about people asking whether I should have a database for my separate office and my home, or different ways of organizing that. So I'm going to let Ann talk for a little bit about that to give us a primer on what a database should consist of. Ann, take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks, Fred. When people are setting up a database, say for instance we have a home office, I would recommend that you start with just one simple new database. And within that database, there would be everything relative to your home office materials. And in the case where maybe you're running a business in your home, you may refer to it as your home business database. Now, as you're operating your business, and you may end up having another person working with your Paper Tiger, and you realize that you want to have your personal files separate from your database, you may want to create another database for your personal files, so that when you don't want to set up separate permissions, you want to have a completely separate database where it's not looking for the files in your personal files as well as in your business file. So that's the case when you would want to have two separate databases. In my experience with large organizations, when you have multiple departments where they may have a lot of common files, it may be better to have one whole database so that the entire organization can find files when you're looking for them. If it turns out there's proprietary information within a database, say for the legal department, and they don't want any chance of anyone ever accessing that database, then I would recommend that you create another database for, say, the administrative files.
Perfect.
Hopefully that gives you a basic idea of how to set up a new database.
I think that sounds great. So basically the bottom line is that when you search in PaperTiger, the search only works within a single location. So it really depends on what you want to find when you're searching at the same time. And like you said, most people like to separate your business from your home. Some people like to have it together. And then same thing with departments. You can either separate the databases or, as we'll show you in a little bit later, you can set up permissions and have very specific permissions as far as what people can and can't access. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you look here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new database. And I'm going to call this database my work. So basically this is going to be my office database. Let's just call it office database. And once you go ahead and hit the button, you'll see this notification at the top. Anytime you do anything in PaperTiger, this bar at the top here that you see will verify that what you're doing basically was confirmed. So I'm going to go ahead and click hide. And so you can see here, you've seen that this new database that we just created is now active. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and it will take us right into this database. And as you can see, the first thing that we try and get you to do is to create a location. And basically, a location is the physical place where you actually want to store your items, such as your files or other things. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is get started adding a new location. In order to do that, you can either click this link down here. This message will go away after you put the first new location, or you can just use this this button at the top, which will always be there to add any location. So I'm going to go ahead and click new, and you'll see the window pop up. What I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to set up a location for my desk drawer, which is within arm's reach, and it's where I keep most of my files that pertain to my work at any given point in time that I have to access. So I'm going to call this desk drawer. And as far as the description goes, usually you just want to put something down here to help you remember exactly which drawer this is. So I'm just going to write something brief in here to help me remember.
Fred, I'd like to add a little something about the location names and the descriptions.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Sure.
One of the things I find that clients like to do is we refer to the locations and think about the functionality of that location. So as you just said, your desk drawer are the things that are at your right hand, the things that you need most often. It may be, so you're thinking now that that desk drawer is your kind of your hot buttons and your most current projects. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about setting up your locations, think about the functionality for that specific location as you're considering what the use and capacity of it is.
Great. Okay, so since we're talking about the capacity of this item, why don't you go ahead and explain to our listeners a little bit what capacity is and how you should decide, how to choose the capacity.
Great. When you're looking at the file drawer, you are looking at this drawer and it's full of file folders probably right now, or maybe just empty. And you look at how many file folders you think you would end up putting in that drawer. Most drawers on the average file box are about 50 file items. Some of the larger drawers may contain about 100. And I would always put in the capacity, say, for my desk drawer, start at
Ann, are you still there? Okay, it looks like we might have lost Ann for a little bit. So I think what she was saying is that on average...
Go ahead.
Are you back there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I think we lost you for a second. We lost you at about 50 files. What would you say after that?
Oh dear, okay. All right. A smaller file box may have 50 files. A larger box may be able to handle like 100. And I start out with what I think is going to be it and put in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of putting the capacity in is when a little bit later you're going to learn about how you set up the file labels, and you're prepared to put the next piece of paper in the next available file easily.
And as a note, you know, one of the things that I wanted to say is we'll go ahead and put 50 for this location, but you can change this at any point in time. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. You know, as long as you have enough empty folders to make it smaller, you can decrease the capacity, or you can increase it as much as you want. The sky's the limit here. So, you know, this is not a critical decision at this point. You know, as long as you have enough to start out with, then you can always add some afterwards. Okay, and let's just go ahead and add this location, and we should see it pop up in our database list. So the next thing that we've got to do is as soon as we add a location, is we're going to have to set it up so that it becomes ready for filing. It can be ready to receive our paper. And one of the things we've done with PaperTiger Online is we built a tool to help you actually generate and print out the labels for you instead of actually having to write them by hand, which, you know, sometimes if you have 50, 100, 150, that can take a really long time. This tool is awesome, and it'll save you a lot of time. So if you look up at the top here, you'll see there's a print tab / labels tab. So, excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what this tool does is it'll generate labels for your folders based on your location capacity. If you can see here, there's a drop-down list. The free accounts in PaperTiger Online only allow you to print out self-cut tabs, which basically you put in an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper into your printer, and it'll print out your tabs, which you can cut out, you know, with some scissors and slide them into your hanging file folders. Now, if you go ahead, if you have a paid account, what this will allow you to do is print directly onto Avery file folder templates, and as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of them. I think we went through the Avery catalog and found all the hanging file templates that we could, and we basically built the functionality in here so that you can go ahead and print it. You know, you put the sheets in the printer, go ahead and print it out, and you don't have to do any work. They just basically snap off, and you can put them in there. I'm going to use the self-cut tabs just so that you can see what they look like. And in here, you'll see that this is the location that we just created called desk drawer, and I'm going to print the tabs for the files number 1 through 50. What this allows you to do also is when you're adding more files to the same location, instead of having to print everything all over again, you know, you can go from 50 to 100 afterwards, and it'll print those out instead. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and do 1 through 50, and once I click here, you'll see a new tab opening up, and this will generate a PDF that you can save onto your computer and print with these file folder tabs. Now, the only thing that you should take into account is that you want to make sure that when you print these, you turn off any type of page scaling that your printer might have, because that'll cause it to not fit just exactly right. We've measured everything out. The dimensions are exact to fit on your file folder tab, hanging file folders, and that's especially the case when you start choosing one of the Avery templates. Those are, you know, very exact measurements. So I'm going to let Ann talk a little bit about how to actually install these labels and what to do from that point.
Well, thanks, Fred. One of the things I was thinking about when you were just showing that example is that on the self-cut tabs or any size tabs, one of the things that you want to consider is that we're on the top, when you're looking at this form right now, Fred named this location desk drawer. So when you're printing out your labels, it will refer to the location name and give it a sequential number based on that location. So if you are going to call your file drawer and file drawer number and file drawer black cabinet, obviously that's not going to print on that tab. So be conscientious or mindful of what is going to print on that label. The Avery labels tend to be kind of small, And at some point in the program, you can adjust fonts. But for the basic versions here, you're going to want to look at this font and sizing as it is here.
So, and
so once you have,
let me show you a quick tip based on that. So let me go ahead and create a new location real quick, and I'm going to make this a very long name. Desk, drawer, a black cabinet. Okay, and as you can see, this is definitely not going to fit in one of those file folders. And one of the things that we have anticipated is just that. So when you go ahead and come here, and if you select a location that has a very long name, it'll actually allow you to change the name in here so that you can rename it to something shorter. So you can say desk, a black, and that'll actually fit in the tab instead.
I've been doing this too long. That's a great enhancement. Good job.
Well, thank you.
All
so
right.
Keep on going.
All right. My mind is trained to be really efficient, thinking all the time. So all you new Paper Tiger users, your mind's going to get trained to be efficient all the time as well. All right. Okay. So once you have, then when we go ahead and we generate the tabs, Fred, would you go ahead and just generate tabs PDF? All right. So what you have now is you have a PDF that is, in the case where you had just a single sheet of paper and you print this out, and you are going to cut out these file tabs and going down like, cutting down the, vertically on the sheet of paper. And then the reason you want to fold over and use the labels a little, you want to thicken the paper, because when you have a Pendaflex file folder, those are, people classically know them as the army green hanging file folders. Then you have those, you're using those folders, and you insert the little plastic tabs that go on those folders. And I generally use the rule of thumb of inserting them at the front of a hanging file folder, because it's easier to access everything once you put it in that way. You slip the little piece of paper folded into the plastic tab, and then obviously insert it on the hanging file folder. One of the tricks that I learned to keep it really simple when you're setting up your file drawer is go ahead and take all 50 of these labels, grab 50 of those hanging Pendaflex folders, and put all of them in ahead so that your drawer is ready to go when you're ready to file. Another trick that I learned is people get a little caught up going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they get a little confused sometimes as far as visually being able to see the file tabs. So I always recommend that the odd numbers are the first position on the file folder on the left, and then stagger the even numbers in a couple of tabs in, and stagger back and forth. So then the odd numbers are always in the far left position, and the even ones will be probably in the middle. So you're visually looking down a drawer of all the odd numbers on the left and all the even numbers down the middle. And it'll be really obvious sometimes if in the future you may pull a number out and not refile it quickly. So that's just a little tip on setting up the insert file tabs.
Well, that's an awesome tip, actually. Okay, so right now we've got a little bit of time for questions. So let me go ahead and pull up some questions, and let's see what our folks are saying here. Give me 1 second. So I see we have had a whole bunch of requests. One of our users is asking about Dymo label printer integration, and we have had some requests for that. One of the things that we've had, one of the very few downfalls of moving to the web is the fact that we have a harder time integrating with other devices. So right now, the Dymo printer, I know they do offer an SDK, but it is a little bit tough for us to integrate into those things right now. It's not that we'll never will actually do it, but I think it's one of those things that just technically is very difficult. Let me go ahead and read off the next question. This might be a good question for you, Ann. One of our users asks, we have horizontal file cabinets where we look at file names from the back and front. Can the label print the file name in both in the front and back? And actually, that might again be a question for me. That's a very good idea. That's not something that we've ever thought about before, but that seems like a great point. Obviously, right now the functionality is not there, but like I said, Janet's taken very detailed notes about you guys' questions, so we'll definitely keep that in consideration, and we might follow back up with you to see what we can do about it. But the functionality is not there right now, even though that's an awesome tip.
That's an awesome question, and the rudimentary response would be, unfortunately, have to just print the label twice, and just go ahead and instead of adding a wasted piece of white paper on the back, use the second print copy.
Sure.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
It is. It really is. Janet, have you seen any other questions that we need to take a look at?
I can't see them.
Yes, actually, someone is asking where to find the free plan, and that would be on the pricing plans page under the plan boxes for the paid plans. You will see a link that says free forever plan, and you just click on that link and you'll be redirected to a
here's a link
checkout form.
Here's the link. If any of you guys have had trouble finding this, it's right down here. Once you go ahead and click on this link, it'll take you to the free sign-up page, as you can see here.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we move on?
There is a question. It says, how do I set up for a subject to be traced in both the desk drawer and an archive?
And do you have any feedback on that? Anne, are you there?
Hi, okay, I just saw the question here. How do I set up for a, I'm trying to figure out what the question is.
Okay.
How do you set up for a label to be in 2 databases or 2 locations? Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, if that's the case, the way you would have the file, the label print up, is you would have to create another location for archive and a location for the current area that you're working with, and you would print out the labels for each of those different locations. So you would be dealing with that later down the line when you set up the new location. It will have already been set up for you when you're setting up the new location. That's my answer to that question. Okay,
and I see another question here. One of our users is asking, other than online storage, what are the new features that are not in the desktop version of Paper Tiger? And to answer that question, a lot of the things that we've done, what we tried to do with our first online release is really to cover the waterfront and make sure that that there was nothing missing between the desktop and the online product. As you can see, we've made a whole bunch of small usability improvements to help you out, in certain steps, just like what I showed here earlier with the the label being too long. As far as other features, one of the things that I know a lot of our users had been requesting for years in our desktop version was search highlighting, which will actually highlight the terms that are being searched. Like I said, another one of the new features is the Avery printing. We do have support for some Avery labels, but I think we introduced support for some other ones here as well. And I'm sure you guys have heard our announcement from Paper Tiger Digital, and we've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming as far as that goes. Obviously, dealing with digital files and digital file storage. So we're really getting ready to crank up the new stuff, as they say. Like I said, our main focus in the beginning was to make sure that the application worked well online. It was easy to use, and now we're just now getting to the point where we can start releasing some of the new cool stuff that I know you guys have been dying to see. And I think I see one. This is probably the last question we'll take for now, and we'll keep going. One of our users is asking, do you recommend third cut or fifth cut tabs? I think that's a good question.
Okay, that is a good question. And, you know, I find that over the years, I would say 98% of my clients use the 1/5 cut tabs. And I just don't know why, but that just seems to be the preference. People who use they are the smaller cut tabs. The 1/3 cut tabs, maybe if you want to make a very big file name, that's in the case where no, that we wouldn't want to do that. The only reason you would do that is so that you would have a longer name on there, or visually you wanted something to be a little bit whiter, just so there was more white space. So my recommendation generally is the need for it. If you need to have 1/3 larger labels, then great. Otherwise, the majority of people seem to use 1/5 cut.
Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on for now. I know we've got a ton of great questions that we're going to answer here in a little bit, but we're going to keep on going with the content that we have. And now that we've, you know, let's just rehash for a second. So what we've done is we've talked a little bit about databases and how you should decide whether you want to create a new database or use an existing one. Then we went ahead and created a database, created a location within that database, and we went ahead and printed out the tabs like I showed you here. And now at this point, they're installed in our folders, and our system is ready. Although it's just one location, it's ready for filing. So what we're going to do now is, instead of going straight to filing an item, we're going to talk a little bit about network permissions and how you can go ahead and invite a user and set specific permissions per database, per location, etc. So for those of you that are on a network plan, what you'll see here when you go back to the dashboard is you'll see a tab that's called People/Permissions. And this is where you're going to do most of your any functions related to inviting new users, setting permissions, etc. And as you can see here, this is me. This is our test account that we set up for this webinar. You can see that there's a seat available here. Now, in this case, we have an unlimited plan. So if just as you see here, there's some text that says, since we're using an unlimited account, there's going to be an infinite number of seats available. So anytime you click to add a seat, you'll see another one of these empty seats pop up. The main difference is that if you are on a limited account, such as the business plan or the elite plan, the business plan has support for 10 users, and you'll see 10 seats available. You'll see 10 of these little graphics that you can click to add a user. So like I said, and also over here on the right side of the screen, it'll show you how many occupied seats, you know, how many total seats you have and how many are occupied, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Janet. Janet's our office manager here, and I'd love for her to have access to the files. She can keep up with it. You know, she'll really help out a lot. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click this button and add a person. And first name, I'm going to go ahead and type in her name. Last name is Baker, and I'm going to go ahead and put in her email here. And this is the email that the user is going to use to sign in, as well as the email they're going to receive the invitation to. So once I go ahead and put in the email and I hit send, they're going to receive an invitation that they're going to have to accept to this email. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go ahead and put in Janet's email. And below you'll see that here we get to the permission section. And by default, what we like to do is, just so that everybody can see everything, is we have the view and edit all database checkbox checked. What this means is that this person's going to be able to view everything in this in our database within our Paper Tiger account, and they're also going to be able to edit everything. Now, if you only wanted to allow read access, meaning a person can view stuff but they can't edit it, you would go ahead and uncheck this box and check this one instead, which means that this user can only view files in my Paper Tiger account. If you don't want them to view anything at all, which sometimes happens for one reason or another, if you're to uncheck this, this user now has absolutely no rights whatsoever, and they can't view or edit anything. Now, another really interesting feature about Paper Tiger is that it lets you assign permissions on a very detailed level, all the way down to the locations in your database. So if I were to do view and edit, another thing that I forgot to mention is that when you do view and edit all databases, this makes it so that by default, this user will be able to view and edit all new databases that you create. This is just something that it's nice to have if you really don't want to worry about permissions, and you know, maybe there's just two of you and both of you want to see everything. If you check this box once, and you'll never really have to deal with permissions again. So, but if you do want to have you know, a finer level of detail as far as permissions go, if you click here to the right, you'll see there's a link that says Show Databases, and when you click this, a list of databases will expand, and now you have control whether you want them to view and edit, or not view at all the actual specific databases instead of your entire account. Even deeper into that, you can also click into Show Locations, and you can see the locations within a database, and you can actually give them permissions for that. So if you only want them to view, you can also check this here. For example, in our test location, if I only want Janet to view my desk drawer location, I can check that, and if I don't want her to see my big file cabinet location, I can just uncheck her from there, and once I go ahead and create this user, the permissions will be set. So I'm going to go ahead and invite her, and you know, like I said, she's going to be able to view and edit my sample database, and she's going to be able to only view my desk drawer location. I'm going to go ahead and create this user. And now, as soon as we hit that button, an email has been sent to this email with an invitation. Now, what she'll have to do is she'll have to sign into her email address, click on the invitation link, and that's where she can go ahead and create her account. And once that happens, she'll be able to log in, and depending on the permissions that we set, she'll be able to, you know, to go about her business. If you ever want to change permissions for any reason, you can always go here to this link up at the top that says Change Permissions, and you'll be able to see everything that you've set up here and change your permissions accordingly. Okay, so now that we've invited Janet to our database, now we can go ahead and move on to actually filing an item. So I'm going to go back to my Office database here, and I'm going to go ahead and go to my desk drawer location. So, like I said before, now we've got our database set up. We've got an extra user invited so that they can come and help us with our filing, and we've got our folder set up. We've got our tabs printed, and we're ready to go. So now we're ready to file. So let's say, for example, that I want to file a document. So let's go ahead and click on the New button. The first thing, and I'll let you talk a little bit about this, is the first thing you have to do is actually decide where you want to file it. And before you actually file the item, you know, you're going to make a conscious decision as far as where you're physically going to file the item. So, Anne, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, great, Fred. Say, for instance, your desk drawer. You decide that you're going through all the files in your drawer, and you decide that you're going to go into the desk drawer, and you click on that location and open it. So you're going to double-click on the location, and you'll see here where when you double-clicked on it, it shows that you now have 50 open items available. So every file that you have in that drawer can be now, I refer to it as inventorying that file drawer. And the Paper Tiger has the option over on the either on the left where you see the floating new, and you can click on there and hit new. And since cursor's over inside the number 1, it'll go into that file. On the top right in the dashboard where it says new with the plus sign, the system will automatically pick the next sequential number when you're adding a file. So go ahead and hit new, Fred. And
go ahead. You actually have control of my screen now, so you can go ahead and walk them through this.
Okay. All right. So say, for instance, one of the first things I like to do with people is in the first file drawer is we hit new. Okay. So the piece of paper that's going to go in new for desk drawer number 1, I always refer to as the Paper Tiger. And this file is going to have notes, from teleclass. So the old me is saying teleclass, and we should refer to it as webinar. My webinar, and you might just remember Janet. We love you, Fred, and maybe you like me, but Janet, we all remember you because your name's on all the emails. We always hear your voice. So you're going to go ahead and add those keywords and the name of that file as that new file. Okay, now what we just did here is we created a new file. It's Destor number 1, and it's Deep Paper Tiger. And what I did here is I put in the keywords that when I go back to think about that folder, I may not remember the Paper Tiger, or I may be thinking, what did I do with the notes on the webinar? So the word webinar is in there, so later when I go to look for that file, I can go to the search engine, which is, I'm not seeing it on my screen.
You can go ahead and scroll up there. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay. What he just did there is on the sidebar here, there's a scroll, and you can scroll up and down to see the screen more or less. And I had it scrolled a little bit too low. So hopefully everybody can see what I was doing there. Okay, so now later, okay, you can find another piece of paper, and you hit New over here, and it might be Bank of Colorado, because I'm in Colorado. And when I'm looking at this file in my drawer, I'm noticing that I have statements, sorry for the typo, and I have a signature card. All right, so now what we're going to do is we've now added, are we going to have a spell check on this version, Fred?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, we are. In
I'm
the
sorry?
future, you'll be able to have the spell check. Are we going to have a spell check on keywords?
For now, what we're depending on, most new browsers and most operating systems already come with built-in spell check. As you can see, as you saw there before, it automatically, just like Word, underlines the misspelling. And I believe you should be able to right-click it and change it to the right word. At least on the Mac, that's what happens. Anyways, keep going, please.
All right. Okay. I'm actually purposely asking these questions because I think that might be helpful to our listeners.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So the second file was now Bank of Colorado, and the things that I saw in the folder were just statements and signature cards. So I just added that information in there. So again, when I go to look for it later, that it is available. All right. Well, as we're going through this, the next information that I found was came across taxes for 2007, and thinking, you know what, I don't think I need to have my tax file for 2007 in my desk drawer. So as we had a listener earlier say, how do you deal with archives? At this point, maybe what you might do is go get yourself a file box and create an archive file. And we will call it archive say archive, and I would say February 2011. And sorry, I don't know if you can see me typing that. Archive 2011, February.
There you go.
And okay, and what some clients do is the description may be, you may keep this in a storage closet. So you say in a closet by supplies. And we're going to have that file box. There's going to be 25 items in there. Add this location. And this is what you will do when you're filing. So you'll then go into that location, archive 2011 February, and go in and have an item name and say taxes 2007.
So, and let me
you're looking to,
let me jump in here for a second. One of the things you would do, just like we showed you before, is once you create the new location, the first thing you should do is when you create the new location is go ahead and either set in the folders or actually print the tabs so that the folders are sitting there ready for you. Because now Anne's created 25 items in here, and now you actually need a place to put it. Is that correct, Anne?
Yep, and we're ready to go and put files in that box.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Now, now we have several locations. We were looking at locations here before, but we also have the option to jump to a location on this area here, where we the drop-down menu to jump to different drawers. So I'm going to go back to my desk drawer and continue filing. So this is, something where you just stay very focused and go through the box of files or the drawer of files that you have. And since we're new in starting out your database and your file drawers right now in these locations, it's easy just to go ahead and go here or here, whatever you want to do. But later down the line, you may have a very full drawer. And say, for instance, you're going to take your number 1, the Paper Tiger file, and say you no longer have any contents in there because you know everything and none of the paperwork in there is valuable anymore. So you're going to end up trashing that file, and what's going to happen is we're going to empty that physical space as well as the digital electronic information. What this has now prompted us to do is when the Paper Tiger is having you confirm a transfer or a deletion of a file, it's asking you if you want to have a reminder or confirmation of this deletion. Just like any other backup system with software, it's asking you, do you want a reminder? If you're right in the process of doing it right now, no, I'll remember because I'm doing it right now. You can go ahead and toss it. If you hit yes, let's go ahead and do that and hit toss. What's going to happen is you're going to see that that file is still in that drawer, and it's saying that there's a toss pending. Well, people might ask me and say, well, why would I do that? And the reason is if your phone's ringing or you're in a very active office and you're going to get distracted, if you move it, you won't remember necessarily where you were thinking you were going to move it because your mind got preoccupied with something else. But right now, the Paper Tiger is giving you a track record of what you're planning on doing with that, and it says you were going to take that file and you were going to trash it. And they're like, oh, okay, so now we can go back to drawer number 1, grab that file, let's click it and confirm, and now that number in location is going to be free. The reason I'm just showing you this sophisticated part of the system, that's the transfer and tossing, is when I was saying later when you have a very full drawer of files, the sequence of saying that when you go to put in a new file 3 or 4 days from now or 3 or 4 months from now, but you don't remember where you had an empty slot, the Paper Tiger will automatically go to the next sequential number when you go to put in the new file. And the new file may be February 2001 webinars. And you add that and to 2001, 2011, and it'll go into the next number that was available. So if you had an empty slot at 10, it would have directed you that you have free space there so that you're maximizing all the folders within your drawer. Okay, does that give you an idea of how to start documenting things? I sure hope so. I like people to think of your file drawers like the inventory of your assets of your files. And the more information that you put in here, keep it simple with the item name, because that's just like what you traditionally would think of, and then put as many keywords as possible so that later down the line, when you're going to look for something, you can find it. I want to give you another hint. is, say for instance, your Bank of Colorado is now is Denver, and you made this file a year ago, and you put in the word Denver, and you're really frustrated because when you go to search for it, it's not there. You're thinking, that's odd. I know I've got my Bank of Denver information. So then you type in the word bank again. You keep thinking of the keywords that you might have had in there and type them in there like, oh, yeah, it used to be the Bank of Colorado. So you don't necessarily have to change the name of the item, but you do need to add the keyword. You don't have to write all of this. You have to add the keyword Denver so that in the future you're not banging your head saying, what did I call that file? So that's especially good when you have several people working on your database. Keep thinking of all those keywords and just go ahead and add them so that later you'll know exactly where they are. Oh, that's a little bit, is there anything, do you have any questions that might be coming up about filing here?
Let's go ahead and
address?
let's go ahead and check out our questions here. Give me 1 second while I read through them, and let's see what we can answer.
People, I see somebody saying that, will you be available? I have to leave early. And as Janet said, I am offering a free 30-minute telephone call to anybody who wants to call me and help them in any way I can to get them started or to strategize about how they can most efficiently use the Paper Tiger system.
Anne, why don't you leave your contact information in the chat? That way these folks can email you or call you when they need to. Anne's information is also on our website under Paper Tiger Experts, but just go ahead and leave it for them. That way they can get in touch with you if they need to.
Okay, got it.
So I have one of our users is asking, is my database saved on my hard drive, or is it only accessible when I'm connected to the internet? That's a great question. I think a lot of you might be wondering that. And because this is an online product, all the data is actually stored in our world-class data centers, meaning it's very safe, it's very secure, but it's not in your hard drive. One of the beauties of that is that your laptop might get stolen, you might have a house fire, you might have a flood, something may happen where your computer gets completely destroyed. By being on Paper Tiger Online, you do not have to worry about it because all your data, all your information will actually be stored safely in the cloud. One of the things that you can actually do if you want some peace of mind as far as having your data locally just in case you think something might happen to our data or whatever, is if you click up here in the database preferences panel, you can see that there's a database export tool that will allow you to export your data in XML format. XML format is something that you'll be able to export and you'll be able to open up in Office and in a lot of other programs. And that's how you can make sure that if for whatever reason you want to have the peace of mind that your database is actually on your own computer, you can actually store it there. Let's go ahead and answer another question. Give me 1 second.
One of the things I just thought of, Fred, that people will need to know that at the end of the day, when you're physically filing your files, the Paper Tiger has the functionality to run reports. Can we look at the screen and look at reports?
Yes, absolutely.
So at the end of the day, when you finish filing all your papers, for the person who was saying also, if you're not available, if you don't have internet access all the time, another thing that you want to do to keep yourself backed up is to go to the report option. And what I do is it's kind of like my closing out of the day where I might print my schedule for tomorrow. With the Paper Tiger, what I go is I generate an item list report of everything that I just accomplished. So here I have a physical copy of everything that we just filed. Now this is also helpful so that in that first file drawer that we called the Paper Tiger and that I changed, I always keep that file there with a printed copy of the item list report. So if anyone has any issues where they do not have the they can't access the Paper Tiger for some reason, their internet's down or something, they can at least go to the physical copy in that printed out in that file drawer. There's many different reports to play with. This is a basic one that you will probably always want is the item list report. Another absolute favorite of mine is down here where we have the file cleanout report. And in December, I'm busy with all my clients saying, let's do an inventory of all our files and go and clean them out. Let's go print out this report and look at what we have and make a decision if we want to review them, if we want to toss them, if we want to transfer them somewhere. We want to just leave them where they are. And then when we can focus on this report, we can make decisions about what to do with those files so that they don't stay stagnant in our drawers. That's the fun part of it. Another thing you can do with these file cleanup, with any of these reports, is I work with a lot of people that are administrative assistants to executives, or people who are in multiple departments where many people are using it. And when you print out a file cleanout report, you can get input from everyone by just passing along this report and saying, what do you want to do with all these files? I worked with a big legal department, and they had 12 attorneys, and we just printed out all of the case studies, cases that they had, and we were able to clean out and store a lot of old files because we got easy input, and it wasn't the terrible task of everybody having to look through the doors. So great for delegation and making team decisions.
And that's an awesome tip. Thank you very much for that. Let's see if we have any other interesting questions. Okay, so one user is asking, I'll go ahead and read off the question. One challenge that we've had with the online version is as follows. We have a large cabinet that is a single location in Paper Tiger. However, during tax season, we want all the client tax folders in one area. For example, drawer 100 to 300. She says, I know this defeats the philosophy a bit, but in the desktop version, we could have them go into a specific folder. Now, if there are empty locations in the first 100 numbers, it selects that folder. And would you care to answer that?
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is you have a lot of folders. You have a central file area that's 1 through 300. I can't read the question, so I'm sorry. For some reason, they're limited to like one-liners, and I can't see where you are.
And just go ahead and check on the chat, and you'll be able to read it from there.
And click on the chat. Sorry, guys. Thanks for working with me here. Okay, on the chat. Don't see it.
If you look at our private chat that we were chatting on earlier, Janet's been posting them there.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm still not getting it.
Okay,
nope,
so
I'm not getting it.
No problem.
Just repeat it to me, and I'll answer it easily.
So basically, what this person wants to know is they would love to be able to keep their files related to certain things in for example folders number 100 to 300. They want to group these files physically in Paper Tiger Online. Is there any way that we can do that?
All right. Well, you can. And one of the challenges is sometimes, if I remember when I created originally, the challenge is they may have set it up as like a reference area, and then they realize they have 1 through 600. And they're finding out that they really want 100 through the first 100 to 300 to be tax clients. So what it becomes a little bit cumbersome, but what you can do is you start to transfer files. And you'll take item number 101, which is the janitorial contract, and you transfer it to the next available number, which might be 652. So then you physically move that file from 101 to 602 or 652. And then you take item number wherever the client file was, and then transfer that to the 100 area. It'll automatically pop back into the 100 series because you just emptied the janitorial file, which was in the area that you wanted to focus on for clients. So this takes a little thought, and you need to be focused as you're doing it. And the key is that you make the number available in the area that you want it, but know that the Paper Tiger is sequentially going to put it in the next available number when it hits new. Otherwise, you have to manually go to the number and do the edit and add it new into that area. So it is a little complicated. I hope you were able to follow that answer and be able to do it on your own. If not, sure, post me an email and I'll get on the phone and we'll go through it.
Okay, and
but
I think this is the last question that we'll answer today. Another one of our users is asking, is it better to have many small files that may be 1 page each, or is it better to have fewer but larger files that are several pages? What do you think? People
ask that very often, and I think I use as many. I keep it simple and make a file for every new thing that you have. And when it gets to the point, though, that you keep adding everything to Bank of Denver, Bank of Denver, Bank of Denver, but then you realize when you're going in there you can't find anything. It's taking you too long to sort through the file folder because there's too much information in there. At that point, I would separate it out. So I guess my feeling is to keep as few as possible initially, because the setup is a lot faster that way. But if you feel that you really are going to go through files quickly and often, I would set up new ones for every individual piece of paper until you're comfortable with the system. So it really depends on how you think. If you have a lot of space, go for it and make something for everyone. Otherwise, just keep adding keywords, and you can have as few files as possible.
Great, Janet. I think we're about ready to wrap it up for today. Why don't you tell us what's going on now?
Okay, Fred, I just want to mention that you did mention earlier about our digital enhancement that is currently in development as we speak. We're very excited about providing this enhancement. You can sign up to participate in the digital enhancement beta testing when we get to that point. And if you also want to give us your thoughts and suggestions during development, please take our survey. And I'm going to provide the link to everyone now. Hopefully you received that via the chat option. And also for anyone on the call that does not currently have Paper Tiger, don't forget our sale going on now through Valentine's Day. I wanted to mention to any professional organizers or productivity experts on the call today, if you think you might want to conduct a webinar, please contact me and let me know. We can talk about that, get you scheduled. And wow, we've covered a lot of stuff today. For those of you who might have come in late, so far we've covered creating a new database, adding a new location, printing tabs for your locations, the multi-user concept and how to assign permissions to additional users, filing and finding items in the database, and printing reports, and lots of great tips from Ann along the way. You can see how additional help from a professional would be helpful, even though Paper Tiger is easy to use and you can do it on your own. A professional would be a great addition to getting your office in productivity mode. In addition, we want to thank you again for attending today's webinar. We had such an overwhelming response and lots of great questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to answer all of them. We will try to follow up with you, but if we happen to have missed your question and we are not able to respond to them in the next couple of days, please feel free to contact me at any time. We are at sales@thepapertiger.com. You can also find our contact information again at the bottom of our website page. Just to let you know, we do plan to post the recording on our website so you can refer back to it whenever you need to. We will be announcing when we get those posted in our e-newsletters every week. And please feel free to give us your feedback by emailing us anytime. We strive daily to improve in every area, so we appreciate your feedback. You know, we can sit up here in headquarters and think we're doing the right thing. If we receive your feedback, we know in what areas we need to improve on. So again, we appreciate your attending.
Okay, guys. Like Janet said, we really appreciate you you coming to our webinar. What we'll do for the next one is we'll open it up for a little bit of discussion. We want to hear what you guys want to learn about. We're here for you. Please let us know what you want to hear in the next webinar, and we'll be more than glad to cater it for whatever you guys need to learn. Thanks again, and I believe we're signing out. And thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ann.
My pleasure.